The silent invasion. The skies darkened over New Angeles on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in the middle of calibrating sensitive equipment in her quantum physics lab when the building trembled. At first, she thought it was an earthquake, common enough in this region. But the vibration pattern felt wrong. It pulsed with an unnatural rhythm. "What the hell?" her assistant, Marcus Chen, muttered as he steadied himself against a workbench. Elena rushed to the window. What she saw made her blood run cold. Massive dark shapes punctured the clouds, sleek, obsidian structures that defied Earth's architectural principles. They weren't buildings. They weren't aircraft. They were something else entirely. "Marcus, turn on the news," she whispered, unable to tear her eyes from the window. The lab's wall screen flickered to life. Emergency broadcasts from around the globe showed the same scene playing out across every major city on Earth. Shanghai, London, Cairo, Rio de Janeiro, all reported the same phenomenon. Enormous alien vessels positioning themselves above urban centers. No warnings, no communication attempts, no diplomatic overtures. The first attack came without preamble. A beam of intense blue-white energy lanced down from the vessel hovering over the downtown district. Buildings simply ceased to exist where the beam touched. Not destroyed, erased. The destruction spread methodically, like an artist carefully erasing unwanted elements from a canvas. "They're systematically eliminating our infrastructure," Elena realized aloud. "Power stations first, then communication hubs, then military installations." As if to confirm her analysis, the nearby Andrews military base erupted in a flash of light. The entire facility vanished in seconds. The global defense networks activated, but their response proved futile. Missiles disappeared mid-flight. Fighter jets evaporated. Earth's most sophisticated weapons seemed primitive against the invaders' technology. Within hours, global communications began to fail. Government emergency broadcasts cut in and out. The aliens, who still hadn't attempted any form of contact, continued their methodical destruction. Elena's lab at the Quantum Research Institute was located underground, beneath layers of concrete and specialized shielding. It had been designed to protect sensitive experiments from external electromagnetic interference. Now, those same shields were possibly keeping them alive. "We need to gather data," Elena told Marcus and the remaining team members who had congregated in the main lab. "If we're going to have any chance, we need to understand what we're facing." Dr. Raj Patel, their resident astrophysicist, had managed to capture readings from the attack. "The energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen," he said, displaying complex waveforms on a monitor. "It's not plasma-based like most of our directed energy weapons. It's almost like they're manipulating fundamental forces at a quantum level." Elena studied the readings. Something about the pattern seemed oddly familiar. "Can you isolate the quantum variance patterns?" she asked. The data reformatted on screen. Elena's eyes widened. "That's impossible," she whispered. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "They're using a form of quantum manipulation that should be fundamentally incompatible with our universe's constants," she explained. "It's as if they're operating on a slightly different set of physical laws." Then it hit her. Or maybe they evolved in an environment where certain quantum interactions we take for granted simply don't occur. The implications were staggering. If these beings came from a place where certain quantum states never manifested, they might be completely blind to those same states here on Earth. "Pull up my research on quantum entangled communication systems," she instructed. The stuff the military said was too theoretical to pursue. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of activity. Surface communications were almost entirely gone. The scattered reports that made it through painted a grim picture: systematic destruction of human civilization, with an estimated 40% of the world's population already dead or missing. Underground, Elena and her team worked frantically. They repurposed their quantum research equipment to analyze the alien technology more thoroughly. Each new discovery confirmed Elena's hypothesis. The invaders seemed unable to detect or interact with certain quantum states that were perfectly accessible to human technology. It's like they're colorblind to an entire spectrum of quantum possibilities, Elena explained to Colonel Rivera, who had arrived with a small contingent of soldiers seeking shelter. Their weapons, their ships, their detection systems, they all operate on quantum principles that skip over states our technology can access. And that gives us what, exactly? The colonel asked, exhaustion evident in her voice. An advantage they don't know we have, Elena replied. We can develop communications they can't intercept, scanners they can't detect, and potentially weapons they can't see coming. They called it Project Phantom. Using the secure underground facility's resources, Elena's team began developing prototype devices that operated exclusively within the quantum states the aliens appeared unable to perceive. The first breakthrough came when they converted their quantum entanglement communication system to operate solely within the invisible spectrum. It allowed them to contact other surviving scientific facilities without the aliens detecting the transmissions. Gradually, a network formed. Underground bunkers, military hardpoints, and research facilities shared information and resources. Elena's team distributed their findings, and soon, other scientists around the world began developing applications for this newfound advantage. On the 10th day of the invasion, they tested their first active countermeasure. A small drone, modified to operate using the invisible quantum states, was sent to observe an alien patrol near what remained of the city center. The entire team held their breath as they watched the feed from the drone's cameras. The alien craft, smaller scouting vessels, passed within meters of their drone without showing any sign of detection. They can't see it, Marcus whispered in awe. They literally cannot perceive it. Elena felt the first genuine spark of hope since the invasion began. This is just the beginning, she said. If we can make our technology invisible to them, we might stand a chance. Over the following weeks, Project Phantom expanded rapidly. Surviving manufacturing facilities began producing equipment based on Elena's designs. Quantum-shielded vehicles could move undetected through alien-occupied territories. Communication networks rebuilt themselves on frequencies the invaders couldn't monitor. Humanity began to organize a resistance. The first counteroffensive was small but significant. A convoy of alien supply craft was ambushed by fighter jets equipped with quantum-shifted weapons. The aliens had no defense against attacks they couldn't detect coming. The entire convoy was destroyed without a single human casualty. News of the victory spread through the hidden human network like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion began, people dared to hope. The aliens responded by intensifying their attacks, as if aware that something had changed but unable to identify what. They carpet-bombed areas indiscriminately, trying to flush out the sudden resistance they couldn't seem to track. But humanity had found its edge, a technological blind spot that gave them a fighting chance against an enemy that had arrived expecting no meaningful resistance. As the 1-month mark of the invasion approached, Elena stood in the command center of what had become humanity's primary resistance hub. Screens displayed feeds from around the globe, showing quantum-shielded forces preparing for coordinated strikes. They came here thinking we were defenseless, she told the assembled military and scientific leaders. They never expected us to find their weakness so quickly. They never expected us to adapt. Colonel Rivera nodded. Thanks to your discovery, Dr. Vasquez, we're no longer just surviving. We're fighting back. Elena looked at the battle plans displayed on the main screen. And soon, she said, determination hardening her voice, we'll be winning. The quantum counterstrike. The aliens, now identified as the Vestige through intercepted communications, had conquered half the planet in just over a month. Their strategy had been methodical. Target major population centers first, then expand outward in controlled zones of occupation. They clearly hadn't expected meaningful resistance. Why would they? Their technological superiority had allowed them to neutralize Earth's conventional military forces within the first 72 hours of the invasion. What they couldn't have anticipated was humanity's capacity for adaptation. Elena watched from the underground command center as green dots representing quantum-shielded resistance forces moved across tactical displays. The Vestige couldn't detect these troop movements. To them, it would seem as if human forces were materializing out of nowhere. "All units in position," reported General Takahashi, who had assumed command of the Western Pacific Resistance Forces. "Operation Blindside commences in 3 minutes." The plan was audacious but sound. Simultaneous attacks on Vestige command ships in 12 locations around the globe, using weapons operating exclusively within the quantum blind spots Elena's team had identified. "Remember," Elena cautioned, "we don't know how quickly they can adapt. Once they realize what's happening, they'll try to compensate." The countdown reached 0. Across the world, human forces launched their first coordinated counterattack. In New Angeles, quantum-shielded aircraft released specially modified missiles. The Vestige's defensive systems showed no reaction. They couldn't detect the incoming threats. The missiles struck with devastating precision, crippling the command ship's propulsion systems. Similar scenes played out across the globe. Seoul, Sydney, Berlin, Moscow. Vestige command ships found themselves under attack by an enemy they couldn't see. For the first time since their arrival, the aliens were thrown into disarray. Intercepted communications revealed their confusion. How could primitives with inferior technology suddenly bypass their defenses? Where were these attacks coming from? The Vestige commanders had no answers. "They're pulling back to defensive formations," Marcus reported, monitoring the alien movements. "They're actually retreating." A cheer went up in the command center. The first major human victory had been achieved with minimal losses, but Elena remained cautious. "They'll adapt," she warned. "They're not stupid. They'll figure out what we're doing, even if they can't see how we're doing it." She was right. Within days, the Vestige altered their strategy. Unable to detect the quantum-shielded human forces directly, they implemented wide-area bombardment tactics. If they couldn't see their enemy, they would simply destroy everything in a suspected area. This scorched earth approach was devastating to the remaining infrastructure and civilian populations. Human resistance leaders found themselves in a grim race against time. They needed to neutralize the Vestige before the aliens rendered Earth uninhabitable. "We need to take this to the next level," Elena told the assembled scientific team 6 weeks into the war. "It's not enough to hide from them or launch hit-and-run attacks. We need something that can end this decisively." Dr. Patel had been analyzing the recovered fragments of alien technology. "Their quantum blindness gives us an advantage, but their core technology is still far beyond ours," he admitted. "However, I think I found something interesting in their power distribution systems." He displayed a complex schematic on the main screen. "They use a form of energy we might call reversed quantum flow. It's incredibly efficient, but it has one critical vulnerability." Elena studied the diagram, understanding dawning on her face. "If we could induce a cascading entanglement collapse in those systems." "Exactly," Patel confirmed. "Their entire power grid would implode." This insight led to the development of the quantum cascade device, a weapon that could trigger a catastrophic failure in Vestige technology by exploiting their quantum blindness. Each alien vessel contained interconnected systems that, when properly disrupted, would create a chain reaction. Designing and building these devices became the Resistance's top priority. Every surviving manufacturing facility was repurposed for the effort. Scientists worked around the clock, refining the technology while resistance forces continued their guerrilla campaign to buy time. 3 months after the invasion began, the first quantum cascade devices were ready for deployment. The plan: insert specially trained teams onto the 5 largest Vestige motherships simultaneously. Each team would plant their device at the ship's power distribution hub and escape before detonation. Colonel Rivera, now General Rivera, would lead the mission against the flagship hovering over what remained of Washington. D.C. Elena insisted on accompanying the team as the technical expert. "I need to be there to make any last-minute adjustments," she argued when Rivera objected. This is too important to leave any margin for error. The infiltration vessels, completely shielded by quantum technology, approached the massive alien flagship under cover of darkness. The ship's exterior was a marvel of engineering, smooth obsidian surfaces interrupted only by occasional pulsing blue lines that marked energy conduits. "No signs they've detected us," reported the pilot as they approached a maintenance access port identified through previous reconnaissance. Elena felt her heart pounding as they docked against the alien vessel. Despite weeks of studying vestige technology, actually boarding one of their ships was entering unknown territory. The boarding team moved through the cavernous interior of the ship. The alien architecture was unlike anything human minds had conceived. Spaces that seemed to fold in on themselves, corridors that curved in impossible ways. But the quantum shielding held. They moved like ghosts through a vessel teeming with alien crew, none of whom showed any awareness of the human infiltrators. They reached the power distribution hub, a massive chamber where swirling energy patterns danced between crystalline structures. Elena quickly went to work, making final calibrations to the quantum cascade device, based on the actual configuration before them. "Set the timer for 15 minutes, Rivera ordered. "That should give us enough time to get clear." As Elena activated the device, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "They've detected something," Rivera said. "Move, now." The team retreated through the alien corridors, now filled with frantic activity, as vestige crew members responded to the alert. Even with their quantum shielding, the humans had to dodge and weave to avoid physical collision with the aliens rushing past them. They reached their infiltration craft with just minutes to spare. As they disengaged from the mothership, Elena watched through a viewport, counting down the seconds. The detonation wasn't an explosion in the conventional sense. Instead, a wave of distortion rippled across the massive vessel. The blue energy lines flickered and went dark. Sections of the ship seemed to phase in and out of reality as the quantum cascade tore through its systems. Similar reports came in from around the globe. All 5 targeted motherships were experiencing the same catastrophic system failures. What the human resistance hadn't anticipated was the psychic shock to the vestige collective consciousness. Later analysis would reveal that the aliens shared a form of distributed awareness through their technology. When that technology collapsed, it created a psychic backlash that incapacitated vestige forces everywhere. Within hours, alien vessels worldwide were either plummeting from the sky or making erratic emergency landings. The vestige command structure had collapsed completely. The war wasn't immediately over. There were still thousands of stranded alien soldiers to deal with, but the tide had definitively turned. Humanity had gone from the brink of extinction to victory in just over 3 months. As debris from the Washington mothership rained down harmlessly over the Atlantic Ocean, Elena stood on the deck of the resistance vessel, watching history unfold. "We did it," Rivera said, joining her at the railing. "We actually did it. We found their blind spot." Elena replied simply, "Every species has one, even us." In the months that followed, humanity began the long process of rebuilding. Captured alien technology accelerated the recovery efforts. More importantly, the quantum cascade devices had not destroyed all vestige technology, just disabled it. This left vast amounts of advanced alien tech intact for study and reverse engineering. 1 year after the invasion, the first functional interstellar communication system was established using modified vestige technology. To humanity's surprise, they received an immediate response. The message came from something calling itself the Galactic Confederation, a collective of spacefaring civilizations. They expressed shock that humans had not only survived a vestige cleansing operation, but had actually defeated the invaders. "The vestige have cleansed 17 worlds before yours," the translation read. "None have survived, much less turned back the tide." The Confederation Council requests immediate diplomatic contact with the species that accomplished what was thought impossible. When asked why they hadn't intervened to stop the invasion, the Confederation representatives admitted a harsh truth. They had written Earth off as lost the moment the vestige arrived. No species had ever developed effective countermeasures against vestige technology before being annihilated. Humanity has proven itself unique among known civilizations, the Confederation message continued. Your ability to identify and exploit a fundamental weakness in what was thought to be perfect technology has unsettled many council members. Some speak of fear, others of opportunity. All agree. The galaxy will never be the same now that humanity has joined the stars. As humanity's representatives prepared for their first official meeting with the Confederation, Alina found herself reflecting on how close they had come to extinction, and how a quirk of quantum physics had given them the edge they needed. They came expecting pests to exterminate, she told the newly formed Earth Union Council. Instead, they found humans. And now the galaxy knows what that means. The vestige had arrived on Earth expecting an easy conquest. What they found instead was a lesson the entire galaxy would soon learn. Never underestimate humanity's capacity to adapt, innovate, and overcome.